Hey everybody. So this one, I know with us I did a non-spoiler review and a spoiler review. This one I'm just gonna do a spoiler review. Because honestly I think there's some aspects that if you're a parent, I think you forget if you're seeing the ads and thinking this movie's one thing, you're gonna be quite surprised when you go see the film. So if you're taking really little ones with you. So I just wanted, the reason why I'm doing a spoiler review on this one is because I want this to be a parental review. So I want this from the perspective of a parent. And I want to give it as the perspective of a parent on this one. So, so first of all, I'm going to take my glasses off here. So, first of all, the first thing I want to say is that this movie was awesome. It's a really fun movie. If you're not familiar with the concept, it's based on the DC comic book. It's part of the DCEU. It's a very much a standalone movie. There are hints here and there about other superheroes in this universe, but other than that, they don't really take over the picture. They're not really setting it up to be a part of the DCU necessarily, but it's definitely part of that same universe. Okay, so just to kind of set it up, you have this character, Billy Batson. He's a kid. He's a foster kid, and he's looking for his mom. And one day, as he's running away from bullies, he magically ends up in this really dark cave place, and is approached by a wizard, played by Jiwon Hunsen, who tells him, "Say my name and you'll get my powers." And of course, the name is Shazam. So of course, whenever he says the name Shazam, he turns into an adult superhero. And then when he says it again, he turns back into a kid. So, yeah, the movie is very, very fun. I'm going to say that right off the bat. There are a lot of fun things about this film. But the one thing you may want to keep in mind is, if you're going to take your kids to this, is that the movie is rated PG-13. And they really push the limits of that PG-13 at points in this film. In particular, when it comes to how dark some aspects of the film can get. Okay. And I point this out because because of the fact that I myself am a parent, as a lot of you know. I have a 10-year-old son. We took him to see this. He was okay with it. We went to see him. I was a little concerned about it when I heard how dark it was, but he was okay with it. And he's 10. Okay. So when I looked at Common Sense Media, they said about 11, 12. I would say, I think it depends on the tolerance of your particular kid, about 10 and older on this one, if you're going to take them. Because there are aspects of this film that get really, really dark. One of those being, if you had heard in any other reviews of the film that have come out since the previews a couple weeks ago, when they had the special showing a couple weeks ago in theaters, the limited showing that was only for the one day thing that was done by Fandango. You might have heard in some of those reviews about the scene that's been referred to as the boardroom scene, and how intense that gets, and as being one of the better scenes in the film. Now they weren't kidding. That's probably it's probably one of the more intense scenes in the film, because you have the bad guy going in, Mark Strong, and he plays Dr. Savannah, and he goes in and he's basically confronting his father, who owns the company, and his brother, who helps him run it, and by this point he has gotten the powers of the bad guy powers, and he approaches them and basically kills everybody in the boardroom. And somebody gets a head bitten off. He throws his brother through a window on this high rise, and it gets intense. It gets pretty intense, and these 7 deadly sins do not mess around, not at all. And And for a younger kid, that could be very scary for a young kid to watch. And because I know if my kid was any younger, I probably wouldn't have taken him. That was one of those things where when I saw the description of the scene, I had gone on to there's a website I like called Common Sense Media, and basically they don't advocate either way, good or bad. I mean, they give a review of the film as to whether it's any good or not. But I mean, as far as they don't go. They judge the review just basically on the film's merits, but they also give sort of a review of, okay, how much sex is in it, how much violence is in it, da 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 da. So, so when I saw that scene of the violence, I showed it to my husband. He said that he should be fine with it, and so the scene came up, and didn't hear any screaming or anything from my kids. So I figured he's probably tolerating it. So I made sure afterwards I asked him and said, "How did you feel about that scene? How did you? Was there anything in the movie that scared you?" He's like, "No." So I think he's growing up. So things aren't bothering him as much as they used to. So we're good. So yeah, there's so scenes like the boardroom scene is probably the worst of it as far as the violence goes. I mean, it gets pretty intense and dark in quite a few places. And for a movie like this, it's actually good that it does that, because it kind of raises the stakes of what this kid's going to have to face when he's Shazam, and what he's gonna end up having to battle, and what he's going to have to eventually get over and fight, and it shows that he may be over his head here in being this character, in being this superhero. So, but the movie has a lot of fun moments too, because you have these montage scenes where him and his buddy Freddie are going through the different the different aspects of testing out his superpowers. Which is a pretty fun scene. They start doing different things to try to see what he can and can't do. If you've ever seen the scene in the trailers with them in the convenience store, that scene is actually much more extended. So they don't reveal everything that goes on in that scene. In fact, when it's revealed that he had in the trailers, you might have seen that he has the bullet immunity. That gets extended. So the bad guys shoot him. And, sorry, my cat's playing with it. The bad guys shoot him, and discovers he has bullet immunity. So he tells the guys, keep shooting me. So they shoot him, and then Freddy goes, yeah, well, how do we know it's not just the suit? Shoot him in the face. He's like, what? And they shoot him in the face, and he's bullet immune all over. So yeah, so that's a pretty funny scene. And there's a lot of funny scenes like that in the movie. And if you're wondering why the camera is moving, my cat has decided to come. So there's a lot of funny scenes like that in the film. And there's a lot of like typical teenage humor in the film. And I'm trying to get my cat over here so she doesn't move the camera again. Hey. Stop. So there's a lot of typical, it's like I said, it's PG-13, so there's a lot of typical humor, typical teenage humor. So, like for example, now that he's an adult, now that he looks like an adult, you sit in the trailer, he tries to buy beer. They're able to buy the beer, but then it tastes gross, so they go in and buy some better stuff instead. And then they have a scene again where he goes into a strip club. You don't go in yet. It's PG-13, so you don't actually go into the strip club. You're outside the strip club. You know what it is, though. And he comes out of the strip club, and Freddy's like, "Did you see boobs?" And then so it has that kind of juvenile humor to it too, along with a bunch of other types of humor. The one thing I'm not going to spoil because it's not relevant to the parental part of it. But there's a scene in the third act that it's just too good to spoil. I'm not going to spoil that one. But there's towards when you get to the third act, it's just hysterical, and it's just hysterical. It kind of turns its. I'm just going to hint at it and say it just kind of turns the head on. It just kind of turns around the whole thing about the kid about the whole final showdown of the final showdown of the bad guy versus the good guy, and it's just hysterical. So a lot of the film, like I said, it has good humor. It has some decent special effects. It can get very dark at times. And then also another thing about the film is that this is probably some of the best kid acting I've seen in a while, because you have Billy Batson, who's played not only by Zachary Levi, who plays him in the adult form, but he's also played by Asher Angel, who plays him in the kid form. Who does a really good job. They both do a really good job of playing this character of this foster kid, who really does not really trust anybody, and feels like he's and just kind of revels in the idea that now he's this big superhero. You have Jack Dylan Grazer, who plays Freddy in the movie. He does a really good job. And the whole message of, not the whole message, but like we'll get to the message in a minute. And the whole idea of them developing this friendship over the whole superhero thing, plus and just being real kids, and just showing the idea of why Freddy would be potentially jealous of him having this power, even though he's helping them out at the same time. He did a really good job with it. Out of the other remaining foster kids, probably the Steel was probably Faith Herman, who plays Darla, who's the youngest of the kids, and she is just so adorable. She was really good at this part. Especially when she figures out that it's Billy when she figures out it's Billy that's a superhero, or finds out that it's Billy that's a superhero, she has to keep the secret. She tries all she can to try to keep the secret until the others find out. And, it's just funny, and the other kids were good too. I'm not gonna name every single one of them, but there's like 5 kids in this foster. There's like 6 kids, including Billy and Freddie, in this foster family, and all the kids. Now they're really good actors. All of them were really good actors, and they all did a really good job with this. So when the final message of family is clear by the end of the film, and you get the whole big thing at the end. The whole big thing towards the end, where, and people said this is a spoiler. If you've read the comics, it's not really a spoiler, but but in the comics, all 6 of the kids end up with the Shazam powers, and that's basically what happens at the end of the movie. In order for them to beat the bad guy, Billy gives them the powers. It's hysterical. It's hysterical when they do it. I'm not going to spoil that part either, but it's hysterical when they do get the powers too. So now it's setting up for a whole Shazam family, which again is in the comics, and kind of setting up the whole idea that in the future movies, it's not just going to be Billy, it's going to be the whole family. They're all going to have the powers. They're all going to fight with them. And so the kids did a really good job with this film. In this film, Another thing was another thing I wanted to mention. And I think the theme of family and the importance of family was good in this film, because throughout the whole thing, it's Billy wanting to find his mother. That's his main motivation. He wants to find his mother, because he doesn't know where she is. He's never been able to find her. He was abandoned as a young child. So now his whole thing is he wants to find his mother, and then coming to that arc at the end where he realizes that his real family was in front of him the entire time. Is a good message. It's a very good message, and is one that should be, and it is one that's really not hammered, but one that's really emphasized in this one. And you could tell that they did a really good job of making that the theme. There's actually been a lot of films recently in the past few years about family and the importance of family and what makes up a family. And it seems like a big theme the past few years when it comes to movies. See, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 did it. Deadpool 2 did it last year. A few other films had it as a theme. And now you get Shazam that has it as a theme too, as the importance of family. And what makes up your family. And there was quite a few scenes in here too that when I look back on it, and even when I was watching the film, kind of knowing what I knew beforehand before going into watching the film, I thought were great instances of foreshadowing as to what was going to happen. So, for example, in the very beginning of the film, we sort of get the origin story of Dr. Zavanna. Again, like I said, very, very well played by Mark Strong in this film. He's very good at villains, especially super villains, where in the beginning of the movie, he's like Billy. He was called as a child to be the champion, and he gets tempted by the Eye of Evil, and you could see that. As he's going up, he's wearing glasses. As he's going up to the eye, you could actually see the reflection of the eye and the reflection of the eye in his glasses as to the eye that it ends up in, and which I thought was very, very clever on their part. So there were a lot of very clever little moments like that, and there was one thing I probably caught it because I tend to read synopses ahead of time. I don't even think it's so much that I don't think it's, especially with the Marvel movies, because I want to make sure especially with the superhero movies in particular, because I want to make sure that if I'm going to take my kid, I want to make sure it's appropriate. But so I ended up so I knew in the comics that the brothers and sisters, his other foster siblings were going to have the powers also. And so when, what do you call it? So when the, what do you call it? When the wizard is talking to Billy about his origins and the origins of the council and all this, and saying my brothers and sisters have all died. I'm the only one left, so I need to pass down my powers to somebody else, and and you see that there are 6 chairs, and then you realize there are 6 kids in the family. It kind of foreshadows that you kind of know what's going to happen towards by the end of the film. But anyway, so this was a great film. It was a lot of laughs, a lot of heart. It is darker than you would think on this film. Than you would think based on the trailers. Based on the trailers, you would not realize, you would not know how dark this film gets. But it does get dark. Like I said, my 10-year-old, my 10-year-old was able to handle it. I asked him when he got home. I asked him, "How did you feel about it?" Were you scared by anything? He's like, "No." So he was okay with it. So I would probably say 10 and up on this film, roughly, somewhere along those lines. So yeah, that's Shazam. And there's and also be forewarned, there are two. There are two. I want to say trailers. That's not what I mean. Two end credit scenes. One's a mid credit scene where we see the bad guy. Maybe I shouldn't spoil him. So no, I will leave those for maybe a different video on the explanation of those two scenes. So so we'll end it right here. And so this is the parental review. So as a parent, if you're planning on taking your kids to this, I would advise 10 and up, unless you know your kid's not going to get scared by any of the stuff in the film. And you'll have a good time. This is a very, very fun film. Okay, so the next review I'm going to do is actually going to be on a Hulu show called The Act. So watch out for that, and I will see you soon.